Hi, beautiful souls. I've been sitting here for about 5 minutes waiting to press the record button, trying to work out how to start this video. I want to try and convey what's happened to me in the last 24 hours. Well, it's culminated in the last 24 hours. A shift has taken place for me personally, and I would guess for many people in this realm. We all perceive what's happening here through our own specific perspective and filters. And so this is my perspective. This is how I feel, how things are moving and changing in the world. I had a very intense discussion with my cousin last night on the phone. Hi, Paul. Paul is my go-to person. Paul is incredibly wise and knowledgeable and tapped in to a lot of things. And he has a fantastic sense of humor. So we laugh a lot about each of our predicaments and awarenesses. But what's been happening for me over the last few months is I know that I'm going to be moving in a different direction. And it's not that I will let go of inner child healing or emotional intelligence entirely, but I couldn't really put my finger on it. I couldn't really understand what was happening except that things were going to change. So about 15 years ago, when I left the school in the United States that I went to and I returned to Australia, I remember reflecting back upon those 18, 20 years of my life and having no regrets, reflecting upon what I had achieved or not achieved. In my mind, I am, as I've said, a bit of a perfectionist. So I had ideals and goals that I had set for myself, mostly in the spiritual world, not so much in career-wise or acquisitions, things like that, but where I wanted to be. And when I reflected upon my time in that intense initiation, that intense schooling, I had no regrets. I was quite happy with how I had achieved or not achieved, succeeded or failed. It was all okay. Now, what's been happening in the last year is I once again have been looking at where I am in my life, what I've achieved. And in many respects, I felt that I had not gotten to the place that I wanted to be spiritually, psychically, energetically, and was having sort of regrets and having feeling in a way that I had failed to do what I had come here to do. Very intense stuff off and on over the last year. And I think in the last week or so, I've just bluntly and boldly said, I've failed. And I had to, in my own mind, accept that this was where I was. It wasn't anywhere near where I thought I would be when I first got on this journey, when I was in my mid-20s. So I had expectations and ideas, which is never a good thing, is it? You have to just be where you are. And all of these revelations that I've been having, I understand that I've been saying these things for years to the people that I work with, on my YouTube channel in the last 3 years. So I have known of these concepts intellectually, but in the last weeks and months, I've been looking at these concepts and seeing how I live them. And on one level, I felt I had failed to be who I think I should be. And this, how do I know this? This is obviously through comparison. This is through what other people seem to be aware of or achieving or perceiving. And I went to lunch with a friend a couple of days ago, and I had a big whinge session about the perceived failure to live the life the way that I thought I should, to live my spiritual life the way that I thought I should. And I whinged. We talked for about 3 hours, and I was talking about what I'd achieved, what I hadn't achieved, and that I was a failure in a way. And last night, I sort of, in this conversation with Paul, I talked again about had I succeeded or had I failed? Did I have any regrets about how I had run my life in the last 15 years since being back from the United States? Outside of that environment that fully supported you in your journey, supported you in a viewpoint that was not held by the majority of people in this realm. So I've been out in the world in the last 15 years and not really surrounded by like-minded people. And so I looked at the regrets, and I said again to him, as bluntly or boldly as I'd said to the friend that I had lunch with, I haven't achieved anything that I wanted to achieve. I don't think I'm anywhere near where I should be on this spiritual journey, this journey of expansion and ascension. And we talked about regret. We talked about if we were on our deathbed, would we have regret for what we had done or not done in this lifetime? And Paul said he had looked at his life and felt happy with where he was, and to him and to his perspective, he's at peace. And I wasn't, and I had been struggling and railing against my journey in the last year, particularly in the last months, looking at it and assessing it. And it struck me as we were talking that I had to choose to have no regrets. I had to choose to be at peace with where I was. Now, this may be totally obvious to a lot of you out there, so if it is, I apologize. But it was quite striking to me. And I made this decision to have no regrets. And it's along the lines of a light review or a life review. Now, one of the things my teacher used to say was, how do you know you're not actually in a light review? Now, the theory is people who have NDEs talk about going to the light and they see their life flash before their eyes and they see how they have been, and then they feel on the receiving end of what they have, how they've treated others or dealt with others or other situations. And so we see it from both sides of the coin, I suppose. And the life review, whether you believe that the light review is a good thing or a bad thing, I think at some point when we leave this reality, we do this assessment, whether it's in the light or whether it is on what was described to me as the plane of bliss, where you actually sit and reflect. Now, what's interesting is I often find that when I do my tarot readings for the month, that in a few weeks, I look back and I realize it's unfolding for me. And it has. And the first card that I pulled for the year was this Seven of Pentacles, which is reflecting, upon your life. And in a way, you are not only looking at how you got to where you are, understanding your perceptions and your contemplations of how your life has unfolded, it's actually also indicative of a light review or a life review, this card. And in Egyptian lore, mythology, your heart is weighed against a feather when you pass, when you die. And is there anything unresolved in your heart? And this is bringing tears to my eyes. It's not, and again, this might be obvious to everybody, but it isn't that anything external is judging you. It's your own coming to peace with the journey that you've lived. And I have gone through a light review in the last 24 hours. In that, I laid it out there. I laid out how I thought I had done my life, how I'd lived my life, what I'd achieved or not achieved, how open and aware I am. And I acknowledged my failings in my own mind. I acknowledged my frailties and where I fall short. And I came to peace with them. I have no regrets now in relation to all of those benchmarks, I suppose you would call them. Benchmarks of a successful human, benchmarks of a spiritual being. And the light review is necessary to do within our own lives and to really be at peace with where you are. And when I was laying in bed after I finished this conversation, at peace, it was like I was like very heavy in the bed, laying in the bed, absolutely sunk into the bed. I can't really describe it. This is such a hard thing to try and describe. But I was breathing so deeply and so peacefully and so with such relief in a way that it was all okay. And I often talk about we are moving into a new phase in this realm. We are shifting into a new reality. But for us to do that, we have to go through a light review, a life review, and find that place of no regret, find that place of peace and acceptance of what was. And Ijeti kumbe tikati etse tikonyetse tikeka. Esibeti konyene ubetike. Ijeke satsa sushene keka. So to be reborn without dying, to move into this next phase of human evolution, we have to go through that light review. And we can't go into the second phase, this next phase, until we go through this. And I knew last night that I had finished that first phase. And the first phase, in a way, relates to your unfinished business. It relates to the things that have held you back from expanding or evolving lifetime after lifetime, or in all the other nows that you're participating in. And when you weigh your heart against a feather and find peace with where you are, it is that light review in a way. You see who you are and who you wish you could have been, or what you might have been had you been different. But we chose the way our life unfolded before we ever came in. And we are now moving into that new phase. So in reflecting upon my last 15 years and my so-called failings and coming to peace with them, I've turned the page. My heart has been weighed, and it has found to be lighter than a feather. Now, a few weeks ago, so last night I woke up and after I went to bed, I woke up and I recorded all of these understandings. They were there in my mind when I woke up, the fuller or the greater ramifications of what I'd been through. And as I was recording this, Amanda Lawrence came to my mind. And Amanda put out a video a little while ago about the mission, our mission here, and that she saw it, at least at this moment, as a two-part mission. And that the first part was related to your unfinished business, to the stuff that you hadn't fully owned and understood, the stuff you came in to learn this lifetime, to understand and gain the wisdom of. And she called that as mission, part one of the mission. And then the second part could only commence once you finished the first part. And she said, really, our main reason for being here is part two, is this part two of the mission. And you can't move, from my perspective, into part two until you've understood and turned the page on part one. And that involves a life review or a light review and finding peace. And what happened was, when I was laying in bed, when I first went to bed and I was in this place of no regrets, what happened was there was and I accessed a different, deeper part of love of self that I couldn't access up until that point. Again, it's very difficult to describe. And there was a me behind this that was sparkling around the edges. And the ability to find love of self for that first part of the journey was even deeper and greater. So what's next? I am not sure. And that's the adventure. That's the adventure of what is next. Totally at peace, 100% with how my life has unfolded to now. Whereas before these moments in these last 24 or so hours, I constantly felt that there was more that I could have done, or a bigger shift that I could have taken, or a frequency change that I should have achieved. And now it's absolutely perfect what I did or didn't do. I have no regrets. I have no wishing and wanting to have been different. And that's the life review that I feel we all will be going through in order to move, because we can't take the past with us into this new phase. My teacher described part one in a way, using Amanda's analogy, as dragging dead mules behind us as we move through life. And it's all of the things that we wish were different or judge about ourselves or want in a way. So those mules have been let go in this life review. So this is the meaning of the first card for the year of 2024. I urge you to do a life review. I urge you to see if you can find the deep peace. I urge you to see if you can weigh your heart against a feather and forgive your past. Forgive your foibles and your frailties. Truly, truly forgive. And surrender to the next phase. And it's being born anew. Ije tukumbe tikika. India bukuye tse saku ute shenzi eniakuke. Ide de shtako de botushteti anyakia. Zetekika shushania papa ide de ti anyakia. Izetume. Izetume kia chetsu takrete sikeni tekbukote chetsani kikaya. Izabatika ose inne tikia. Indea chucha tsu ebetika. Ize sesa umbaya tekaya. Ije tekayani kikaya chutsanye nekike. Ize te jutakia. Ambakaya tsesise. Indea shusheni akia tsatsa. So to a beautiful, fantastic, wonderful, amazing 2024. So many blessings, beautiful souls. And I'll talk again soon. Bye-bye.